I'm happy to have you here today, Logan. You're like one of the top business professionals in real estate in San Antonio, in my eyes. I mean, I imagine there's people that own the Frost Bank and stuff.
Yeah.
But, I mean, just in like my area of understanding, you're at one of the top. I mean, you're doing,
Thanks.
what, 30 million last year?
Yeah, we range. On a low end, we'll go down to 20. On a top end, we'll go up to 40. That's kind of the range. It's interesting because sometimes that can be a good indicator of what you're doing. But us, it's strange because a manufacturing company that runs at a 20% margin, you can come up with where you're at. With us, though, one deal might give us a 40% or one deal might be a 90% margin. So our top line revenue isn't a great indicator of where we're at.
Plus, your deals are all over the board, too. That 40% might be on a
Whopper,
a $3, $4, $5 million deal.
Yeah.
And then 90%'s on a $90,000 deal. So like even percentages don't even make sense.
That's right.
You know, it's hard to track. But we were just talking about bookkeeping before we got the cameras rolling. And like, that's why I'm getting into that point right now where I'm like, I have to get these books straight. And I'm looking at people like you that are well into business, and you're just like, yeah, this is all the spend, this is all our reports. And I'm like, I wish I had that. You know, I can't wait until we get to that level. I mean, it's happening right now, but it's just so crazy to see and learning from a person like you. And that's really what I want to do today on this podcast is try to figure out, like, teach me something because I'm stupid enough. I'm serious. I'm stupid enough. If I'm learning something, everybody else that watching this is learning something. So talk a little bit about first how you got into this, like, and then the overview of what you're doing on a day to day.
So I was working in the oil field. Let me back up. I inherited some money, 7 figures-ish. Didn't do good with that. Within a couple of years, I was almost out of it. So I thought, oh, gosh, you know, I got to go get sober and clean and get a job and figure this out or I'm going to be out on the street. And I ended up going to work in the oil field. That was the last time I got sober, got clean, and it stuck.
Sober and clean on alcohol or drugs?
All of the above, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I stopped drinking probably 3 or 4 years before then. But drugs work, man. You know, when they say there's no research to prove that, you know, this drug does that. Yeah, there is. There's anecdotal evidence everywhere. It works and people use them.
Yeah.
But it was much harder for me to get away from drugs than alcohol. But I did. And I got to work in the oil field, and that was a great place to earn money, get self-confidence, work experience. And then I started investing in real estate. At this point, I thought, man, what am I going to do? I'm making, you know, within the first year, it was making like $100,000 a year, which is double what I ever made in the past. But I also looked at it and said, oh, my gosh. You know, it takes me 1 year. It's going to take me 10 years to earn back what I blew in a couple. Oh, man, like I really did damage to myself financially. And I started looking at ways to try to earn more money, invest. And, you know, as you know, I bought a couple lots downtown San Antonio. That was back 10 years ago, right after the mortgage crisis.
Yeah. So really quick on your age, like what's the age where you got sober, worked in oil field, started investing? What do all those ages look like?
30 years old. So I'm 43 last week. Married, I have 4 kids. Wife and I both work in our business. Wife works from home, though. You know, she does a little bit more with her kiddos. So this was 2012. I was working in the oil field, and I got laid off in 2015.
Okay.
So that's basically 9 years ago is when I went full-time real estate. But the last 2 years in the oil field, I was a project manager. So I was buying land downtown San Antonio for $5,000 to $10,000 per lot for a single-family lot.
You're making 150 around that time?
Yeah, at that point, I was at the higher end of my spectrum. I'll never forget, $187,000.
Yeah.
That was the salary.
You were rolling, got a nice truck, buying lots downtown, top of the world.
So I was living in an RV still because the RV cost me $10,000, and I was getting paid by the oil company for per diem. But I'd moved into the office working here. So I did have the nice truck finally, but I was saving every nickel. I'm talking, I was a miser, dude, living in the RV, job in the office, just saving every dollar.
Yeah. Well, me too. I mean, I worked, pipeline construction, then got into utilities.
Yeah.
I was director of field ops. I was living in an RV. I was living in a bus, actually.
So you're getting truck pay?
Yep.
You're
Well,
getting-
no, we weren't. I wasn't even owning my own truck. They were providing a company truck, full personal use.
So we had an option. You either get the company truck or get truck pay. I chose truck pay because you get more.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have the option. It was like, here's your vehicle, let's go. And I was like, great. Don't have to worry about a payment. I had no payments. When I first got into real estate, I had 0 payment. I actually had a truck payment because I had to buy a truck. Mm-hmm. But I had 0 payments. Like living on no payments ever. Not a house. I had an RV, bought for $10,000. Moved into that, fixed it up, spent like 4 years fixing it up as I lived in it. Collecting $2,600 a month in per diem.
Yeah.
Spending $800 at the RV park.
But you're pocketing $1,500 a month, dude.
Yep, exactly. And I never understood why the guys that didn't, they were staying in a hotel, $150 a night hotel. Like, what are you doing? Get yourself an RV.
Those are the same guys that were picking on me. They were buying brand new trucks, brand new Corvettes, new boats, and I was hoarding money so that I could make this big real estate play. And they would laugh at me.
Yep.
Before I bought the new truck, I was a project manager. They knew I was making more than 125 and less than 200. They knew our pay bracket.
Yep.
But I was driving an old crappy truck, living in a crappy RV, and they used to joke. But I was also always wearing nice, clean-cut clothes. I was very clean-cut. I had this Rolex, not this one, but I had a Rolex I'd saved. And they knew something was going on. They just didn't know what.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of a story back home on the lake. There used to be this little trailer house that sat on this big lot at the lake. And everybody would be like, dude, why is that thing here? Like, all these nice, beautiful cabins, and you got this stupid trailer house. He's grandfathered in, parked down there. And then one year, the trailer house, gone. Concrete coming in, pouring.
Boom, big old house.
Biggest house on the freaking lake. Guy retired, built himself the big old house he always wanted on the lake. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's like, I see that so often, just in life and business. And I mean, I knew getting into, oil field, that's what I was doing. I was building my nest egg.
There you
so
go.
that I could do something at some point and pull the trigger. And I did finally. And then I lost it all. I had to figure out how to get it back, but thank God it all worked out. So you're getting back to now you're getting transitioned into buying these lots, and you get laid off in the oil field. Then what happens? Your $180,000 golden handcuffs are gone.
There are a couple of things that happened in that era of my life, I'll say. And let me tell you about one of them that was really important to me. I'd lost so much money just being basically an irresponsible, unemployed drug addict living off of inheritance. And when I earned all this money, it was a lot of work to earn this money. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to invest this, but I can't afford to lose it. I can't do this a second round. And I didn't know enough about investing. So I was just looking at saying, how do I not lose? And as long as I don't lose, and there's a chance for upside, but I got to protect this capital at all costs. Later on down the road, I'd read some prolific investors' writings, and one of the things they said was protect capital. First rule, protect capital. And I learned that inherently because that mattered. So that's why they have some of those first, second, third, fourth priority rules. But I found downtown lots in San Antonio would cost between $5,000 and $10,000. And this was a lot to be between 4,000 square foot and 15,000 square foot. So about an eighth of an acre to a half acre, roughly. And you can get them cheap. And I remember thinking, this is downtown, big city, and you can build a house on this. There's utility in this. Yep. You have utilities at the street. It's zoned appropriately. You can go build a house quickly on it. So I remember thinking, it can't get worth any less than it currently is. It can't go down in value. So I remember thinking, that's my downside protection. If I I bought a couple dozen of them. That's where I ended up. And I thought, worst case scenario, if I don't hit this big, tidal wave and all the values go up and I get rich, at least they're probably not going to go down.
You were kind of buying those lots like gold and silver.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, we're just sticking money someplace so we don't lose
it. It's safe.
It's safe.
And maybe you got opportunity for upside because you got the exposure.
Yep.
So what ended up happening is I get laid off, and right around the same time, I get a call from a local broker that wants to buy one of the lots for $190,000. I'm in this thing for $10,000. And I thought, wow, this recapitalized. I think the whole portfolio, I was in it for maybe 300 or so.
Yep.
So I'm going to get $200,000 for one lot. I'm recapitalized 70% of this entire investment, and I still got about 2 dozen lots left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. a lot of things happened. The market had moved when I wasn't watching it. That signaled that to me. I'm also not a poor oil field hand anymore. And I think I'm going to be a real estate guy now. There's no reason for me to go get another oil job.
Yep.
So I sold that one, converted into cash, and I sold a couple more, put some money in my bank account, and thought, all right, this is my seed money. Let me go do real estate.
Yeah. So was it the capital that kept you out of the oil field, or was it the amount of work required, or like what's the reasoning not going back to the oil field? Because I think a lot of people get stuck in this idea, like, I got a $200,000 win, or I got a $100,000 win, but they blow through it or whatever, and then they go back. Like, what was your driving force? Like, I can't go back there.
Well, first, my living expenses were low. $3,000 a month would pay my rent and bills, so I liked that my burn rate was low. I also didn't want to work for these guys anymore. My bosses were nice, hardworking guys. They were wealthy, built something big and special. But I would always work side by side with these guys, and I remember thinking all the time, this guy's not smarter than me. He's not harder working than me, nothing. If this guy can build his own business, I can do this too.
Yep.
And I just didn't want to go. I was also sick of traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to start a life, meet a girl, start a family, all that.
Yep.
So those were the reasons I didn't want to go back.
You talk a lot about your wife in your Instagram posts, and you show her a lot of love. When did you meet her? When at that point along the way?
Literally in that same juncture. A lot was happening. A lot at that time. She was just coming off a bad relationship, and she just got a job at a local title company, which is ironically where I was doing deals. She went to the same church and was baptized there when she moved here at 9 years old in the same neighborhood that I was baptized in 6 months ago. So there's all these weird things crossing. Then I bring in a contract in the title company that she's in, and I was living in my little apartment. She was living in her little apartment. I just came off a kind of a crummy relationship. Her too. All the stars aligned, dude. Yeah.
That's cool. So getting back to the real estate then is you do that. Now, what's your next thing? When did you realize getting in? And I want to cut this kind of short so we can get into the really meat of the bones, where you're at right now. But at what point were you distressed real estate? The title problems is where it's at.
Well, I'd flipped some houses, did okay, but lost really big on one of them. And another guy said, "You want me to teach you how to really make money?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we went to the foreclosure auction together, vetted the deals, bought a couple. And with those, we wouldn't remodel them. We did a couple, but most of the time we just go sell them on MLS right after we close. And what I learned is you can buy property for less than it's worth today, no matter the condition, and resell it immediately and make money. Mm-hmm. And that's so much better than having to do value add, construction, income, rental, whatever. So that was it. I started doing that, and I liked it. But as the market started to get tougher, more people were getting into the business. Interest rates are going down, so there's all this capital flowing. Yep. And we go to the foreclosure auction, and we could no longer buy something for $50 and put it on MLS for $90 the next day. People were driving the price up by competitive bidding, and that went away. So I had to go pre-foreclosure and try to buy from people before the sale. But in that same window, all these things are happening, and I remember fixing a property that I bought without title insurance. It had lots of title problems, and I worked through that process, and it was still a smoking good deal when it was done. And I thought, whoa, there are a lot of untransactable properties in this East Side neighborhood I'm familiar with. They haven't sold, and all the others have. Let me see if I can go focus on these and try to solve these problems. And holy cow, went back to the well, and that worked. And that became our main business line 9 years later.
So all those properties over there had title issues? Or
yeah, so in older neighborhoods, or just there are different places where you can find lots of title issues. I kind of know what that looks like now. But generally speaking, there are tons of them out there.
What's the most common title issue that you're finding in those
fractured
areas?
Ownership. Okay. And well, here's the lead. The lead is they're behind on taxes.
Yep.
So you can scrape data all these different ways, complicated ways. But what I find is once a title problem happens and it gets out of hand and people give up, they quit paying the taxes. Then it shows up on a delinquent tax list. To me, that's the best of all. So you look there, you can count on a large portion of them having title problems. You don't know what yet, but as you start getting a hold of those people, you start to learn. Then you do your research to affirm.
Yeah.
So I went back to the east side and started looking at that and finding delinquent tax properties were the ones that hadn't sold. And that's how I started going down that route.
Gotcha. How often, I'm always curious about this, how often is the tax problem related to that, like a title issue versus like the mortgage is done with and people just don't realize they have to keep paying their taxes?
That's not a big driver there. The mortgage is over. There's usually a problem. There's two common threads. One of them is the problems are just unfixable and people finally just say, forget it, I'm giving up and quit paying. I'm not going to pay anymore if I can't fix this.
Yep.
But the other one is a lot of people pass away and their family is just disassociated. And there are people that are owners of property that just have no idea. That's a big part of it too.
Yeah. So what's the percentage of people that are able to pay versus unable to pay? Like if you went on a percentage basis, you're looking at a tax roll, you're looking at anything over $5,000 owed on a $100,000, $150,000 house. What percentage of people can pay versus they just don't know they need to versus they got severe problems they can't?
Probably half of those people don't even know that they own. The other half, most of those people can't pay. When people have been able to pay in the past, it's been a stretch anyway. And there's 6 owners. They should be splitting it up. Someone's taking the responsibility and making these payments. But another phenomenon that's happened in the last 10 years is the appraisal districts have gotten sophisticated. They use really good data. They're really pushing the tax rates up a lot because the market's expanded so quickly. So someone used to be able to pay $200 a year, $400 a year. It's almost nothing for a vacant lot. Now it's $3,000 a year.
Yep.
Well, you're going to think twice about paying $3,000 over $300. So that has caused people to give up and quit earlier, and that event happens more quickly.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So let's get more into like your business model today. What's the of all the business you're bringing in, where is sources from? Is you're multi-tiered? There's multiple income streams.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
So under the umbrella, I've got 5 business partners total, 4 operating partners, and then me and one partner are the managing partners. Bill, Ryan, Dave. Yeah. There's 6 of us total. Me and Bill are operating, like the managing partners, and then 4 operating partners. Each one of them have a company. Me and Bill have a separate company. And they run those businesses. He and I operate like, I don't know, he does finance and I do operations. It's kind of how we split it up. And we do that across the companies. Most of those companies do a lot of distressed property acquisition. That's where a large part of our deals happen at that company level. Outside of that, we do have a land development division with some partners, and we do have an industrial portfolio that has varying owners. Some of my partners in this business are owners, other people, but so there's really 3 distinct things that I look at. We've got the industrial portfolio. It does about $80,000 a month in net operating income. Then we get the land development. There are 3 projects happening right now, but those 3 projects total to 2,000 residential lots. And then the distressed property acquisition. That's where the $20 to $40 million in annual sales occur at the company level there.
Okay. So that's the bulk of it is their side there.
Yeah, that's where the money comes from. And at that point, we then use that money to deploy into other projects or whatever else it is. But a lot of folks look at all the stuff I got going and say, here, an apartment complex or a warehouse, and they say, how do I go find a distressed warehouse to buy cheap? That's not how it works.
Yeah.
I'm not shopping by asset class at that level. Down here in the operating companies, we're shopping by distress, and we convert that to cash. Buy low, sell high quickly, or as quick as we can. That money is what we'll then use to go buy a warehouse or a ranch development or whatever, or an operating business.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's why when I first asked you about it, I was like, how do I buy ranches that are distressed? And you're like, I don't know that answer yet.
Go flip crappy properties to make money and use that money to buy the ranches.
Yeah. So getting into you got a coaching program where you're teaching people how to do your largest asset, your largest operating area is distressed real estate. Now, we're not talking about fix and flip and distressed. We're not talking about appearance-based distress. We're talking about underlying title issue distress.
Yeah, this isn't physical distress. This is ownership. This is paperwork. This is distress from a financial situation.
Yeah.
It's a little more abstract. And when you look at them, many times they're physically distressed, but that's not the distress we're looking at.
How do you go about first finding that distressed title problem? Because I can look at a home and be like, oh, a house is in distress, but
Yeah.
you know,
But does it have ownership problems?
yeah,
Does it have judgments and liens? I've been through every rendition of county records, land records, all kinds of list stacking. I've done it all. And what I've found over time is the best way to do it is look for delinquent tax properties. A large part of them don't have a mortgage. Otherwise, the lender would be paying it.
Yep.
So there's a lot of equity.
and then you're talking about foreclosures.
Yep. Delinquent tax and tax foreclosures, those are the best. A large part of them have old ownership problems. So we start with the delinquent tax list up there.
Where do you find that?
Go to your county for a couple $100. They'll send you a CD or an email file. You might have to have someone help you modify the file to be a useful format. And then you have this massive Excel sheet of lots of property, assessed value, delinquent tax value, last year paid tax roll value, address, owner name.
Yep. So then from there, you got the list, you got all the names, you got the addresses, you got the asset value, how much they owe on their taxes, how much are behind.
Yeah.
You go sort that list and try to figure out what are you looking when you sort that? What do you look for? Like because there's a lot of like.
Yeah, when you start at the top, there's 2,000 on this list, right?
Yeah, well, and then there's people that owe 50 cents on taxes that have been paid. There's people that own like.
So I want to see somebody at least 2 or 3 years behind, because just like a college kid who can't pay their credit card, after a couple months, you keep lying to yourself, telling you're going to get caught up. Once you get 6 months behind, you know you're not getting caught up, and you start to get real with it. Guess it's going to hurt my credit. Guess I'm going to cancel this account. Same with property taxes. And it's about a 2.8% property tax rate. So on a $100,000 property, you can run a formula in Excel that says, I want to see $10,000 in delinquent taxes. That's about 3 years of taxes.
Gotcha.
I want them to be about that range. That leaves a lot of equity. There's room for me to pay fair money to the person, have a lot of equity, and then pay off the taxes.
So do you take off the top then too? You take out the bottom, take out the 1 to 2. Do you ever?
Yeah. Usually what we'll do is we'll try to get, depending on the business line, of course, but what I usually recommend to people is we try to get that median price point of real estate in that county. And then, we'll cut the very low stuff. Like if the properties were less than $100,000, I would rather not mess with it, because it's the same effort to do $100,000 as a $900,000 deal.
Yep.
It's just more worth your time on the big one. So we'll cut out the $100,000 or less. Once you get into the couple million and above, we'll trim that off too. We kind of get there in that mid range.
Okay. So now you got the list. Got the list all figured out. Target properties you want to target. About 50% of them are people that have problems. The other people probably figure out a way without you.
Yeah.
Now what do you do?
So I'll filter that by geographic location, sometimes by zip code, and really just kind of narrow down a smaller subset, because we don't use big data like a lot of people do with, 10,000 leads and a bunch of cold callers and burn through it. That's not how we do it. These require a little bit more research. So once you narrow down your list down to a couple thousand, filter by a couple of zip codes you're familiar with, so it requires less research to value it. And you might get your list down to 500 or 800. At that point, you just start at the top.
Yep. So what's the issue for, so a lot of people that are real estate doing wholesaling, a lot of doing this type of thing, they're just bulk pushing, numbers to a dialer. They're calling them, hey, would you like to sell your property? We want to make you a cash offer. Whatever their script is, they have various ways of doing it. Why doesn't that work, or does it work with this?
What's so cool about it is when we get through the process we're doing, we call people, and they've usually not heard from others. When people are using the process you're talking about, they're the 9th person, the 12th person that's called them, and they always hear it. Oh my God, everyone's calling. When you look at your process, when you get that lead list and run it through a skip tracing program, the owner of record is who's skip traced. Sometimes they'll pull other associated numbers, but it's usually that person. Well, when we're pulling a delinquent tax list, usually an owner is deceased or there are multiple owners, so you don't get enough good information. We actually look up someone in our office. You can use a VA, but we'll take the owner of record, we'll Google search them, we'll put it into the tax records to find out if they're deceased, or there are other people paying the taxes. If an obituary pulls up in that county by their name, you see other owners, and we'll take the ownership that we find after that search and put that into our CRM. And then we'll run a skip trace on all 6 of those people and dump those phone numbers in it. Then we'll go to the next file. So it takes.
Yeah. But you're not, it's not a bulk data file.
You can't do it on
You can't
this.
bulk data because you're calling either somebody that's already passed away.
Yep. Or their owners.
Or their owners, or somebody that's acquired that number because somebody passed away and now they're the new ownership of that number. And you're, like you said, you're talking to people that everybody else is talking to, but you're not actually talking to the person that can make the decision.
Yep. So when we go through that process, it's okay. It takes more time to do this. We have live people in our office doing that work, but you don't have to be so volumetric because in the data-minded wholesaling churn, you have to call 100 people to get 2 or 3 conversations. Here, if you're narrowing your lead list down like this, every 20 to 30 conversations gets you a deal or property. So you have to make a lot fewer calls to get a deal.
Yep.
Much more efficient in that regard.
Okay. So now, I guess let's back up real quick because it makes sense to me, but that's because I've been through your coaching program. What happens at the point of, okay, you got the list. What are you looking for exactly when you're behind? Like, where do you start? Like, what's the first thing you start doing? You know that they're behind on taxes.
Yeah.
But like, how do you identify problems past taxes?
I don't go further at that point. And the reason is I don't want to get trapped in this never-ending cycle of research. You could spend half your day researching that file and everything about it. And then you call that person and they say, F you, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
You burned all your time. So we want to do just enough research when we're looking at distressed property files to ascertain there is a problem. Don't know what it is, but there is one. It's delinquent on taxes. And let's get an owner on the phone.
Okay.
Once you do that and you get some interest with those owners, then we decide to dig deeper in the research. But only if we get them on the phone, they're interested in selling, and we float very low purchase prices right off the bat in those early conversations, then we'll start digging on the research.
Okay, so what you're telling me, just so it encompasses in my brain and everybody else's, is you're doing the little bit of research to find the obituaries, to find the heirs of that property, if there are any, which it typically it's an heirship issue. So you got to find those people. Then you're skip tracing those phone numbers and calling those people pertaining to this one deal.
That's right.
And do you do that as you're researching, or do you okay, we got those obituaries, throw that in, attach that one deal, let's move on to the next ones, or you just stop right there and start calling?
No, we'll do it more procedurally. And the reason is it's really bad for a person to research call. It's not a good workflow, and you're very inefficient because you're changing gears a lot. So we'll burn through and research 100 files and get all 100 files filled out with the data, the contact information, the basics. Then tomorrow is phone call day. Gotcha. And we start working through that calling because you've cold called just like all the rest of us. I mean, you got to get in the mood. You got to get feeling it. Like you got to have that coffee. You got to get a little bit of sun in the morning. Like you got to have your food. You got to be ready. And when you're in the zone, you don't want to stop and do a bunch of research. When we're in the zone, call.
Yep. So you start calling. What does that conversation look like? Oh, we can role play a little bit if you want.
Yeah. Just so you know what that looks like before we do it. My conversation is more discovery oriented and much more. I'm not aggressive. I don't do the typical, the Andy Elliott sales, this offer expires today. And, if you don't work with me, you're going to lose it. All these things. We don't do any of that. Yeah. I just start out my phone call saying, hey, my name is Logan. I've got a real estate office here in San Antonio, and I do projects that have a lot of problems, title problems and stuff. This one popped up on one of my lists, and, it looks like it might have some stuff like that. I would be interested in taking a look at this with you because these are the kind of properties, these are the projects I do. Would you want to chat about that? I'm non-threatening. Yeah. They know there's a problem. I know there's a problem.
Let's really role play real quick. Let's say you get a weird example of something on my head. You have a lake house, Medina Lake, let's say. Mm-hmm. Lakes down levels, like there's not a lot of property value out there. What you know about it is that there's a owner passed away. There's 6 kids now, and you're getting one of the kids on the phone.
Hey, good afternoon, Evan. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Who's this?
Good. Hey, this is Logan Fullmer.
Who are you? Why are you calling me?
Hey, Evan. I've got a real estate office here in San Antonio. I may have grabbed the wrong person or wrong topic. If that's the case, just tell me and we'll get off the phone right now. But these are the kind of projects I work on. And, there might be some title issues here.
What kind of projects are you working on? I don't understand why you're calling me.
Because I've identified there's some problems with this property. I think there may be ownership problems.
Which property are you referring to?
It's the one over down on the cove on Lake Medina.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. What about it?
Yeah. Is this something you don't want to talk about? Did I get the wrong guy?
Well, no. I mean, it's just it's family-owned land, a house. We've been having issues with. I don't understand what you're calling me for. What do you want to know about this property? It's my grandpa's house.
Yeah, usually folks in this situation are interested in doing something about it, refinancing, selling, or improving the property, but usually the title problems stop them from doing that. But I run a business that actually resolves these problems and deal with it. So I did identify there are probably some of these problems. I'll tell you what I actually noticed. When your great-grandfather passed away, it looks like you had 7 kids. And I did notice that some folks had been paying the taxes, but some folks quit. Was that because they couldn't fix the problems?
Well, here's the backstory on it is we have, my uncle and aunts, they all want to use the property. At one time, we all were using the property. Well, my other uncle wanted to sell it and then created family disputes. And now, some of us use it every once in a while, but, it's just not, it's a conflict of family issue.
Right. So your uncle wanted to sell it.
Yeah.
Did anybody else want to sell with him?
Well, it was, they talked about it, went back and forth, and, nothing's really been done with it. Right now, half the family wants to sell it, half the family wants to keep it,
That's really common. I know that you guys probably think that y'all are on an island out there and this never happens to anybody and everybody fixes their own issues. This is super common. We probably have 20,000 properties like this in Bexar County, and Medina probably has a third of that many. I do have some interesting research. One of the guys in the office is researching through the files. I'd be interested in talking with you more. I do have to disclose at the end of the day, when I solve these problems, it is usually for profit. And I usually do become the owner. Now, when you have ownership fighting and a lot of times there are judgments and liens against people and delinquent taxes, each person has to have something a little bit different. But if you'd be willing to have a little bit more elaborate conversation, I could tell you if this is the kind of property that I would like to take on, and probably by the end of that call, you might decide, hey, this is something I would like to work with you on, or you might decide it's not, and I respect that too. Would you want to have that call now?
Well, Logan, I just think, I respect what you're trying to do here, but at the end of the day, this has been going on for 20 years. How are you going to fix something that we haven't been able to fix in the family?
I hear that question a lot. Here's the problem. Have you ever hired a lawyer to try to help you on this?
Well, we don't want to sue each other. We're family.
Well, not necessarily sue each other, but a lot of the title issues that you may still be dealing with, like the incomplete probate or the probate that no one did for your grandfather, that's got to be resolved. You probably have some other judgments and liens against some of the other owners, and you now probably have a tax lien. A lot of that stuff does require an attorney. Have y'all hired one yet or got consulting from one?
No, we haven't talked to anybody on it.
Well, let me give you a little bit of background. I do several hundred transactions like this annually. I've got lawyers that work for me on my payroll. And I can promise you that if this is a property that fits in the criteria of the deals we do, I can promise that I'll fix it. But here's the way that promise looks. I'm not going to promise I'm going to do anything for you. It gets real easy. You own 1/5 of the property, and let's just say we come to whatever price there is, I'm going to give you X dollars for 1/5 of the property. And I haven't fixed all the problems, but I'll buy your share. And if we come to that answer, you can come to my office on Friday, pick up a cashier's check or cash, and you'll sign your deed and you're done. Now, I'm going to have to deal with all these people in your family one by one, and I don't even know if you and I are going to work a deal out. But if we get to that point where we can't,
how much money are we talking about here?
I don't know that yet. If I would definitely tell you an answer if you could articulate all the problems exactly.
I mean, that's a $300,000 house. So you're saying 1/5.
Well, I mean, you own 1/5, possibly. So I would only buy 1/5 from you.
So we're still thinking around $50,000, $60,000 you're going to buy from me?
Well, here's an example I'll give you. So if you go to the Cadillac dealership and you have a brand new Cadillac, perfect, shiny, everything's great, and you sell it, you get top dollar. Go look at the NADA book. That's the number you get. Now, If you bring in a Cadillac that has a busted window, quarter panel needs to be repainted, and it's kind of sputtering a little bit, you're not bringing me a full price deal. And what you have is property that has some of those things. So during our discovery process, what we're going to work through and figure out is we're going to identify the problems. We're going to tie a dollar amount to what the problem is and what it takes to get fixed. Then we're going to ratio that out to your ownership share. And that's how we'll come up with some discounted value so that I make a little money for all the work I do, but you put some money in your pocket that's at least worth you walking away.
Okay. Well, I mean, we keep getting these bills every week, and
Yeah.
so
The tax man never quit.
so I guess we could talk. I don't know if I'll be ready, but we could talk about it.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. At least I know you're open to a conversation. Me and my researcher are going to sit down and do a little research. You'd be amazed at what kind of stuff we can find in the land records and Ancestry.com and some of this. We'll put together a research project, and we'll come back to you in a couple weeks. If you have any other folks in your family that want to participate in that call, you're welcome to bring them. We can do it on a Zoom. Y'all can come by our office, or we can do it on the phone, whatever you want. Just tell me. And that's when we'll get back together, okay?
Well, my brother probably will be interested in it, so we'll talk. We can talk to him about it. But the other family member, they haven't been able to make an agreement and everything.
There are a lot of ways to work those out. But one of the things I find that matters the most is he doesn't get along with y'all because all these things in family history, or maybe he's just got some craziness. I don't know. But usually when it's a new person like me who's never dealt with the family before, if I'm really kind and careful and respectful, sometimes I can get him to work with me individually, separate from y'all. And the neat thing is,
I don't know about Gus. He's
crazy.
He's crazy.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a weird uncle. You know what I mean?
Right. I deal with people in jail. We've dealt with people that that were in the psychiatric ward, and we had to get a guardianship appointed for them. We've dealt with some of the craziest things. So I'll tell you this, my billable rate is really high, and I'll be willing to work on this project to determine if we have something we can work on together for no cost. So if Gus gets to the point where he's a deal breaker and you can't deal with him, I'm the one that loses out because you ain't paying me per hour to work on this. So let's do a little research. We'll get back together in 3 or 4 days, and then you and I can talk about that, okay?
Okay. Logan, do you have a company? What's your company? Can I do a little research on you?
Yeah, I would encourage that. My name is Logan Fullmer, Asset Resolution Partners. Pop it into Google, and you'll find out who it is and what we do, and you'll actually find a lot of reviews about folks that we've closed files on.
Okay, and you're located where?
Down in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, you're local here.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Logan. Well, thanks for giving me a call. I'll be waiting to hear from you.
Very good. Now, the moment we get off this call, the things that stood out to me are that Gus, he's the crazy guy. No one likes to deal with him. And half the property owners wanted to sell, and the other half weren't so sure.
Yep.
Next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to grab my researcher, and we're going to go digging, and we're going to itemize. In the tax lawsuit, usually an ad litem attorney will go find all of the owners through research. All of those owners, I don't have to pry and ask you, because sometimes that early call feels like you're prying. I'm going to go find all the owners in an obituary, the tax lawsuit, or one of those places. Then I'm going to call them all before I come back to you, because Gus might just hate you because you used to beat up on him or took his girlfriend in 9th grade and he hates you now.
Yeah.
Gus might sell his share for $500 before we even have our phone call. So that's the process I'm going to call through. Everyone have the same conversation. Some people are forthcoming and want to sell immediately and walk away.
Gotcha.
But the interesting part is when I come back to you and I have a family tree built out, all this useful information, and I'm not mean or aggressive and very easy to talk with, these folks are like, whoa, these people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's how the process
Well,
starts.
we could do the second role play too. It's 3 weeks later. You got all the information. Give me a call back. I mean, that might be even interesting to people. Like, well, how does your offer get presented? How do you present it if that's something you want to share?
Yeah. What I try to do is assess the problems. For example, I know you and your wife got divorced a couple of years ago because that was in our research. I'm sorry to bring it up. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? And you'll tell me.
Yeah.
I hate that bee or whatever. And now I know, yeah, man, she really messed you up. I know which side to go on.
Yeah.
But, I'll talk about that. Say, look, I found some judgments and liens against you guys. Good people have bad things happen to them. I've had things happen to me early in my life. But there are dollar amounts attached to that. So you've got.
So what's the conversation look like when you present them? I know there's some judgment liens. No, I don't have no liens. I don't have anything.
Do you remember that Amex card with a $19,000 bill in 2021 that defaulted and sent you a notice?
Oh yeah, that's what my crazy
wife did. See, that might have been the crazy wife, and you didn't get noticed. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to email or snail mail you the copies of those. I didn't originate any of them. I just looked in the land records and found it. It's got both y'all's name and your old address over there on
Yeah.
Briarwick. So I explained.
But that's a conversation for the second call.
Yeah.
That's not a conversation for the first call.
Usually not.
Yeah, because you don't even know that information yet because you haven't done enough research to get there.
See, the way these guys are working in our office, I call it a sales role, but that salesperson has been trained on research, deal structure, and all these things. So when he's talking to this person, usually the call will be a lot like the one you and I had. But if the person is really engaged and interested, some people are very forthcoming, and they just start telling you all the names, all the info. When that happens, sometimes we'll grab one of the researchers, and they'll start researching as we're talking, or I'm popping stuff into Google and making notes, trying to figure things out along the way.
Yeah, that's one of those.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah.
Over here.
Yeah. Got a ringer. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, okay, so let's back up for a second. You get off the phone. You start looking into your research. What's the first thing you go to? What's, with the information?
Right to the land records in Google. Okay. I want to type in Evan Big Price. I want to type that in, and I want to see if there are judgments and liens, other properties, other mortgages against your name, any affidavits that have information about your family. Well, I'll actually start with Grandpa.
Yeah.
And then I'll do him, I'll do your dad and mom, then I'll do you. We'll also put that same information into Google and see what comes up there.
Gotcha.
But it helps us build out. So what we're ultimately looking for is we're going to build a family tree, or maybe it's just one person. There's no family tree, it's single owner. But I want to look at a title report and see if there are breaks in the title chain, if we have bad instruments of title like a bogus deed or a messed up affidavit of heirship or something, or unreleased mortgage from a long time ago. We want to find all that, and we kind of lay it out and say, okay, there are 5 owners. You know, $10,000 in taxes. The property's worth $100,000. But this person has a judgment against him for not paying his child support for $30,000. That's more than his share's even worth.
Yep.
So I start to build those things out. When I have conversations with each person, I let them know, of the $100,000 property, you've got a fifth that's $20,000, but you have all these judgments and liens that are worth $50,000.
Yep.
You really don't have any equity, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you a couple $1,000. Now I'm going to be the one that has to try to fiddle with these liens and hope I can get it fixed. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Plus, I'm going to have legal fees. I don't even know what they look like yet. But I can give you a couple grand for your share.
So how do you determine that? So you got a $300,000 house out in Medina Lake. Mm-hmm. You got $50,000 in judgments on this one guy that owns a fifth.
Mm-hmm. Those judgments only attach to his share, not the total property.
Yeah, exactly. So they're only attached to his share, and then you're still researching everybody else. I mean, I understand why you're waiting now to call that guy back to make him that offer. But you're doing all this research, at the end of the day, you don't know what the legal fees. You don't know if you're going to get this done. I mean,
and that's exactly what I tell people, why I can't pay huge amounts of money. I explain to them, look, I got to fix this Cadillac up, all the problems. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you want to get Cadillac parts, there's a catalog and a price. But when I'm fixing problems like this, there's no line item for legal fees because it could take hours or weeks or months. And there's problems I don't even know exist. Like there are other things that are going to come up that we don't even know exist yet, which is why I can't offer a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
I'm not buying your share in this property. I'm buying your seat at the table. And y'all's Thanksgiving table is a mess. Everybody's fighting, throwing food at each other and yelling. So I'm really just taking your seat here. And I hope I'm going to make some money, but truthfully, there are times where I don't. It doesn't work out for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, just from a back-end perspective, though, you got $50,000, this one guy. You got, you still got to pay him. Plus, you got 4 other family members. I mean, you might be into this deal, $100,000 plus legal fees, and it's $150. Let's say $150 plus legal fees. On a $300,000 property that might need some work too. Like, where's your formula where it becomes too much?
What I look at is what's the property worth today? I don't look at ARV. So for me, at $300,000 might be $600,000 fixed, but I'm looking at what's it worth today. It's worth $300,000. You got 5 owners. They each own 50% share of It's 15%. Each has $50,000 in equity. That's a sixth. I start out super low because I don't know what I'm getting into. So let's say they have $50,000 in taxes. You have $250,000 left in equity. Each person's shares worth $25,000. I mean, I'm offering a couple grand, and I don't know what these things are going to shake out to be. But if I buy everybody's interest for 20 or 30 or 50,000 all in, I now have $200,000 to negotiate liens, pay legal fees, figure something out. And if the worst case scenario, I can't figure all that out, I'm not going to pay the tax bill in the beginning. I leave that tax bill pending, because if I run into an issue that's not worth solving or it's too complicated, I'm just going to let this thing go to the tax sale, and the sheriff's sale will clean up all these title problems, and I'll go get the excess proceeds. That's my exit. Now, the positive is
explain that a little bit. Let's stop right there, because that's important, I think. I think that's important. Let's say you got 4 shares of the 6, or you got 3 shares, maybe 2 shares. I don't know what the number is for you. You got 2 shares of the 6. You don't want to clean up the rest. You can somehow cash out equity at the sheriff's sale.
So when you don't pay your taxes here in Texas, many other states, the sheriff will sell your property to recover delinquent tax monies owed to the county and the Roads and Bridge Department and all the stakeholders. So when that auction happens, let's just say there's $10,000 owed in taxes and the property's worth $100,000, but it only sells for $70,000. $70,000 sale. The sheriff keeps $10,000 for the tax account. The remaining $60,000 is called excess proceeds. It was the person's property who was sold. That's their money. The county doesn't keep the auction price. It only keeps the taxes and legal fees. The remainder is excess proceeds.
So with all these properties selling that have these excess proceeds with stuff isn't figured out, who gets to claim that? Where does that money sit? Just sits in the state or county? Or
it'll sit in the registry here in the county where the sale happened. And if a person doesn't go claim that money within a certain time frame, it becomes cash of the counties.
Okay.
Now, you don't have to cure all those title defects to claim your excess proceeds. You only need to prove that you were in ownership. So if you show a little genealogy report and show them like your birth certificate, you can go claim your share of the excess proceeds.
I see.
Now, in our case, I'll buy a bunch of shares, and if I'm not going to fix it, it's not worth it, I can't, I'll let it go to the tax sale, and then I'll go claim the excess proceeds. That's my profit. The issue is that could take several years, and we don't love that. If I can go in and take this property down, fix the problems, and resell it, I can get it done a lot faster than that. But at the end of the day, the sheriff will always fix your messy title problem. That's your.
Well, that's a beautiful thing about. I mean, it's not beautiful for the owners, but it's beautiful for like just keeping land revolving through the system.
Right.
You know, like I think a lot of people don't realize that when it goes to sheriff sales, everything gets wiped out. It just becomes the land again.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything attached to it. Can you go a little more like in depth, like explain that more fully though? Like what all gets wiped out?
So there are a few things that don't get wiped out.
Okay.
The judgment date and the taxes up to that judgment date are what the property is being sold to collect. But post-judgment taxes are not wiped. So for example, if the tax lawsuit is dated 2022, taxes have accrued for 2023 and 2024. So when the lawsuit actually perfects and the sale happens in 2024, the next 2 years of taxes still attached to the property and they still need to be paid. So if you're buying property at the sheriff's sale, you've got to know what post-judgment taxes are. Also,
and post-judgment taxes are from the date that they filed the case. So if they filed in 2022 and now you're in 2024 at the end of 2024, that case is just getting fixed and sold at maybe tax sale in 2025.
Yeah. You got to go pay for this tax lawsuit, but you've got to go pay the next 3 years of taxes. That's a separate bill.
Gotcha. I think that's I never realized that. I think that's
could be a surprise. Now, code compliance
especially when your property values in the last 3 years have inflated. I mean, we're seeing property values going from, the tax you have to pay going from $3,000 to $8,000 to $12,000.
Yeah.
You know, you're thinking you're getting it for $3,000 plus whatever you're paying the county, right? Like,
You got some surprises.
yeah.
Now, another debt that won't get wiped out is municipal liens, code compliance liens. Those will also have to be paid. Sometimes they'll be wrapped into the judgment because the municipality deals with it like that. But sometimes you'll have post-judgment liens there. What else? Mortgages are usually wiped. IRS tax liens. If the county notices the IRS like they're supposed to in the judicial foreclosure process, they will be wiped. If they notice the IRS and the IRS doesn't respond, that's when it's wiped. If they don't notice the IRS, they won't be wiped and they'll actually stay.
Okay.
Because due process didn't happen.
Okay.
Those are I'm trying to think. I think those are the main ones that will still stick.
Yeah. So even if you're buying just straight from the tax sale, you're having to do all this research anyways.
Yeah, you do need to.
Yeah. So I think how many people go down to the tax sale and buy something and then get stuck with something?
You see it. You do see it.
Yeah. Because they're just like, I heard that Logan said this is the best place to buy properties.
And it is. So when you would buy property 10 years ago, the purchase price was so low relative to the value, you could afford to make the mistakes and it didn't matter. Today, stuff will sell sometimes 70, 80 cents on the dollar. You can't afford to make those mistakes. So you really do need to know what you're doing these days.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. So we researched it. We know the problems. Calling the guy back. You're making him an offer. Couple $1,000. You buy that one guy's share. Now you got to repeat this step with
multiple times.
Now, what happens when you pay? Say the first guy you talked to, didn't have anything attached to that share. It was just straight up equity. You're still making him a low offer just to.
And I'm telling him, I got Gustavo, your crazy cousin or brother, who I still have not been able to get a hold of. I still don't even know what the context is going to be like. I just can't pay you huge amounts of money for two reasons. One, I don't know what's coming up. I could have some real crazy wild card stuff happening. You know I got to pay the taxes for the next 3 or 4 or 5 years till I fix this. Got to have budget for that. And I got to make a little money. I got to do this and keep the lights on. And while you might think $30,000 profit or $40,000 is a lot of profit, for me to deal with this for several years and only make $30,000, I can't even keep my lights on. Yeah. So I got to make a little more than that for a 4-year project. Oh, okay.
Did you ever get into inner family where the families are talking again after this kind of been resolved? And you paid so and so $10,000. Why aren't you paying? Why can't I get $10,000? I own the same share.
That does happen. One of the things I notice is when we start getting a hold of people, we try to act as quickly as possible. A lot of these folks aren't super connected and attached and working well together. Otherwise, they would probably have a better shot at solving it. But you do get what I call clusters. So you get 3 or 4 people, and one guy's got a huge child support lien, but the other one has none. And I start out offering, $500, $2,000, like very small dollar amounts. And sometimes that happens. One person gets more money, and then somebody else comes back and says, that. I want more. Tell them I can't do it. They weren't encumbered as much as you. Like they didn't have as much debt as you do on the deal. Or sometimes I get a lot of folks early on that will sell me their shares for low prices. And the folks that want more money, I push them off. I say, I'd like to cash you out now, but here's the deal. I don't know what's going on. If you really think you want more money, I'm going to push you back towards the end. And you might be one of the last people I negotiate because I will convert unknowns into knowns.
Gotcha.
So towards the end, it makes it easier for me to budget. But right now, you're very speculative. I don't know. Yep. So I might wait for later. Sometimes we'll do that.
So then you just so you got it all done. You got all the purchases. You got all the shares bought. Mm-hmm. You still have typically things to fix even after you're purchased. I mean, you're fixing judgments and stuff. What's your time frame look like on fixing everything?
Along this timeline, I'm kind of ascertaining what all is out there and what my likelihood. After doing this a long time, okay, I'm going to get this negotiated for this many cents on the dollar, or I can get this one taken off my title commitment because it's no longer collectible, or it was indexed poorly, whatever. I kind of start to build that up along the way. But a typical transaction right now takes about 120 to 150 days. And when I first started this, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I was learning. My cash conversion cycle was between 12 and 15 months. So an average deal would take me over a year to clean up. As we got some experience, I started getting better at the process, finding more resources to make it happen faster. But I also started to pick more wisely. So if a deal is something that is not super high price and it's got 40 owners and I can tell it's going to be a hassle, I'll just kind of look at that and say, you know what? No, I want properties that have big enough problems where I can negotiate a good discount, but not such big a problem that it's going to be my new best friend for the next 10 years. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So I kind of narrow in the ones that have good spread, probably reasonable enough to fix, and we choose better now.
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference.
So this is so complicated. There's so many things that are complex in this. I mean, like, I understand from your point of view, it's like, well, it's pretty simple because you have the experience to back it up. You've seen it 100 times.
50% of these are only multiple owners that you just have to negotiate separately. So half these deals are that.
Yeah.
Maybe only a third of them are very complicated title issues that you have to deal with solving. So if you start out wanting to do this, don't try to take on all of them. Just sort through the ones that only have ownership problems. Mm-hmm. And you can run a title report for $200 from Pro Title USA. You send in, have them run the report, and if it's clean except multiple owners, all you're doing is negotiating with owners. Now, that's half.
Yeah.
I recommend people start with those, start making your money, start getting comfortable with the process. As you work through that, then you can start picking up other ones and testing them as you're improving.
Gotcha. So I guess what I was trying to lean towards that was trying to help you sell your coaching program. But if you don't want to sell your coaching
well, I do. We have a great one. But it's not rocket science. But I'll tell you this. You can go figure it out on your own. I did. But for, our program's $30,000. It's more than some people's, but not as much as some. Mm-hmm. Most everybody who gets into this thing makes that money or more back, usually more. And what I tell people is, look, you're going to go out there and make a lot of money doing this. If you have any brains and motivation and you got the bandwidth to do this, you're going to make good money. Paying someone like us to get you up to speed really quickly is a great deal.
Yep.
So this is a fast track education to getting you years of experience in a 4-month time span.
Yeah.
So I think it's a no-brainer. I always tell people, if I could go back to the beginning of my career and pay someone $200,000 to teach me all this up front, boom. There are guys in this program on the experienced end that are experienced operators and want to add a business line, they're wholesaling or flipping. One of the guys ended up picking up a couple $1 million, anything to $1.5 million in equity in our 5-month program. $1.5 million in equity, and his spend was like $400,000 or something. So he would be on the top end of did really well. Yeah. And then on the low end, I had a firefighter who owned an RV park with his dad. They were landlords, but they didn't really know lead gen. They didn't know negotiating. They didn't know any of that. And he did a deal that was $430,000 sale price, and he was all in it for $70,000.
Life changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his ticket was $30,000.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot up front, but if you can go make a couple $100,000 and only do one deal, you've now learned this skill that pays for itself and really can do a lot for your business.
Yeah. What I like about your coaching program is it's not so much based around information, because a lot of these coaching programs, they're going to sell you the secret. Like they're going to sell you what nobody else is teaching and this cool way to do this. You're like, no. We're going down to the title office.
Yeah.
We're getting a lead. What I'm selling you is the experience behind it. When they're like, hey, there's this abstract judgment. What is that? Like, you're selling them to walk them through that, to fix that.
Our deal support.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the first 4 to 6 weeks is education. And I'm on this Zoom 3 hours at a time, once a week, like just pounding all this education into your head. After that, this is deal support. You guys put together your program. We help you do it. Pick your market. Start getting on the phone, and we're going to help you piece the deals together.
Yep. I just think most people just don't realize from the start of getting into something like this is, it's easy to go find the deal. It's easy to go find the problem. The hard part is actually working through that problem. The hard part is just from a knowledge standpoint. You've never done this before. You might have a little bit of knowledge in the space. You understand what title commitments are, and you understand this. but actually fixing those title commitments problems and getting into like the fine details, working with somebody like you through the coaching program, it's going back to like oh yeah, I've seen this 100 times. This is how we're going to fix it.
Yep.
Like don't worry about that. Like we'll worry about that at a later date, but you're focused on the wrong thing right now. We need to figure out this first and figuring out if there's enough money in this deal, because this deal might not be worth anything versus you sitting there for 100 hours trying to figure out one thing
right.
that you shouldn't even be worried about.
You don't have to do what we did. We spent 10 years learning every facet of this in volume, spending all the money up front. You don't have to do that anymore. In 4 or 5 months, we can teach you all that framework while you're doing deals and making money.
Yeah. And like you were talking about big numbers here. So I think a lot of people listening to this, like, this is all great information, Logan. Like, thank you. I don't have $400,000 to spend to make 1.5.
The crazy part is people spend $200,000 to buy and remodel a house, and they go sell it and make $30,000, $40,000 when they're done. We're the opposite. We're spending $40,000 or $50,000 to buy the property to sell for $200,000.
Yeah.
So it's a much more efficient use of capital. If you can get your hands on $30,000 to $50,000, you can do one of these deals.
Plus, if you can't,
and you make big money.
And if you can't, through your coaching program, you're doing JV with everybody.
JV with people like crazy.
Yeah.
Sometimes folks say, dude, this sounds like a good idea. You've proven it works. But when it comes time to write that check for their own $20,000 to buy those shares, they get scared. And I tell people, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I will never encourage you to get into a deal that I wouldn't do. And if I tell you don't do it, you damn sure better not do it, because it's not going to work out well. Listen to me. But if I say you can do it, you should do it. And I've had folks start out in the beginning say, well, I didn't plan to offer JV because I want folks to know I'm not trying to bring you in and take all your money.
Yeah.
I want you to do these deals and make the money. But if there's a reason you're nervous, I'll write the check and we'll go 50-50 on it. We'll use my money. That way if somebody gets strung up, it's me.
Okay. Well, now let's take this from a different – I know you offer this in some way. I know you would offer this. I don't know if you market it. But let's say somebody's listening to all this information. They're like, okay, I don't want to spend $30,000 until I test it out and try it. At what point of collecting information, having people say yes, would you say, don't worry about the $30,000. Let's just do this JV deal together? You know, not coming through the coaching. You did it by yourself. You're willing to learn all the information, go through it, figure out all the things. Now you need my help. What does that person need to bring to the table for you to help them not being in your coaching program?
So at what juncture do you need my help? That's at the time where you got to pay for it and you need the capital, or there are problems to solve and you don't know what the answers to it are. That's when you need me. So I get people call me all the time in my DMs. I found this vacant house. I can't find any of the owners, but it's behind $20,000 on taxes, and all the neighbors say it needs to be fixed. That ain't a lead for me, dude. There are tens of thousands. There might be hundreds of thousands of those out there. I need you to have found an owner and gotten them willing to sell at a very low price. You need engagement and you need interest on low pricing. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have the contract signed yet, but if you have one or more owners and they're willing to walk for a low price, that's when it's time to call me.
Yep.
But don't call me when you found this vacant house driving on the way to your shift. That's too early.
Yeah, it's true. Colleagues talk to an owner first and get some yeses.
Right.
I can't remember. I know I contacted you about it, but when we were closing on the ranch, we had a title problem. I can't remember if I talked to my attorney.
Oh yeah, I remember. What was it about?
So the issue was we were trying to close. Everything was ready, and then for some reason we overlooked this title issue or it came up while we were trying to close. But the title issue was that it was an ownership issue of who owned what land. So the grandfather owned 500 plus acres. When he passed away, his sons got equal shares, and his wife got equal share. Like it was like a wife got half, and then the sons got half. Well, then one of the sons didn't want it, so he sold his share back to the other brothers and the mother.
Okay.
So that happens.
He's diluted into the others.
He's diluted into the others. And then the mother goes, okay, basically in a verbal agreement, when the mother starts getting sick to pass away, obviously hers goes to these two brothers, but they already kind of set up a fence line between the two brothers, and this side was theirs, this side was the other brothers. Mother passes away. Through the last 80 years, they said this fence line is the dividing line.
Oh, wow.
But that 0.06% that the brother transferred back to the mother was never told who owns that. So
it's still mom's.
Still technically, yeah, it was like, it was kind of weird. I don't remember exactly how it was. It's been over like 2 years. But basically, we were trying to associate who owned that 6%. And one brother said, well, I still own a sixth in the whole ranch and own 5/6 on this side. And the other was the same way. I own 5/6 in this way, but 1/6 the whole ranch. But they didn't know that problem existed until we got to closing time. So we wanted to buy, and one of the brothers didn't want to sell. He's like, no, you're not selling.
Ooh.
Right? So we got to the point where we kind of went in and we're like, okay, what do we need to do to work this out? Like, you have your side of the fence, I have my side of the fence. We were working with the sellers there, with the title company, everybody trying to help work this out. And at that point, they were saying no. Like, they were just like, nope, we're not selling. You're not selling. We're not selling our 1/6. Like, once they found that they had power over them, they decided they were going to use that power to stop the sale.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, the leverage. So basically, I think at the time I was calling you, I was like, hey, what are our options here? What can we do? Like, neither side of the family wanted to hurt each other. One wanted a little more control than the other did. But basically, we were just on signed deeds. Hey, you guys get our 1/6, you get our 1/6. Hold on. Sorry to interrupt you, but that just brought up a point that I want to help develop a little bit. The context matters. One says, I don't want to hurt the other, but I got leverage over him. Mm-hmm. Earlier, when we did our role play, you were saying, you talked about differences of opinions and the way people thought and talk and all this. It's interesting. One is actually kind of damaging the other.
Yep.
And while he might be a nice guy, he's impeding the other person for accessing his inheritance. Mm-hmm. So while I'm not trying to hurt him, I don't want to sue him, but I'm going to stop him from getting his inheritance.
Yeah.
Like, do you see that a lot? And folks say, my gosh, Logan, your business can be really aggressive. We do a lot of litigating in this field. And folks say, oh, my God, well, I don't want to hurt my brother. I want to get out of this, but I don't want to sue him. Hold on, you're going to stop him from getting his inheritance. His financial future is being damaged by you, but you don't want to sue him. Like, what the heck? You deserve to be sued, dude. Yep. You're damaging his financial future. So it's interesting the way people normalize, rationalize, and downplay some of their behaviors and actions.
Yep.
I look at it and say, sue the motherfucker.
Yeah, well, that's what we eventually got. That's eventually where we got with this deal was, they were like, our seller was like, listen, I don't want to sue you, but if you force my hand, I will.
See, that's where he had the guts, and he was willing to rise above the politically correct, kind words and see it for what it was. Dude, I love you and care about you, but if you're going to hurt my financial future, I'm going to sue you, dude.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was kind of because when those words were spoken, oh God, the whole thing erupted. Like, that's everybody was like, people crying, like family members crying about it. Sellers cried about it.
Nothing changed the day before that to the day after that, but someone used words for what they really were and decided to defend themselves.
Yep.
Isn't that funny?
Yep.
Now it's emotional. Now it's a big deal. Nah, dude, you've been doing this stuff for years.
Yep.
But now it got real.
Now I kind of gave it back to you.
That's right.
Like just in a different context.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we ever used this, but because the seller asked me, what are my options here? Because he's ready to sell. We were ready to close. He's like, what are my options here? And this is the only thing holding up this whole deal. And I told him, well, we can threaten to sue. That's not going to do a whole lot. What the really problem was, you'd have to sell the entire ranch, the whole 1/6 share. You'd have to sell. Like, if a worst case scenario,
the partition either gets cut up or the judge orders the whole thing to sell.
And that's the worst case for me because I don't have many rights anymore to buying more than just what you have to sell, and it could go to a higher bidder. There's all these different things, but that's right. Your option, And when I told him that, and he realized that maybe this isn't the best thing for Evan, this might be the only way to do it. That's what they used to, further the deal. And then it was like, okay, let's send the papers, deed it across. Nobody was losing anything.
Right.
He still had his ranch. The other guy still had his ranch. They were just trying to hold up the sale of the next door.
This is another good topic about this stuff, litigation. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Early on when I got into real estate, folks, wise men would tell me, you need to get yourself a good lawyer. And I remember thinking, I'm just buying and selling property. I don't know why I need that. Today I look at my business and now I know. I was told in a deposition last month that apparently I'm a plaintiff in at least 30 lawsuits is what the defendant's attorney pointed out. So he was trying to pick on me and say I was a bad guy. But I had to clarify for him that I'm in the business of solving problems that people can't solve on their own. And many times when people can't get along, you've got to get a judge to solve that for them. That's why I do it. And it is part of my business. So I'm not a vexatious litigant who's out there just raising Cain everywhere. But I go solve the problems that the worst of the problems, the ones that other people won't pay for or won't fix on their own.
So what does a normal litigation look like for you? Like what's the most common form of litigation you're getting into with these deals?
Two really common ones I see are co-tenant claims and landlocked properties.
Okay. Well, how do you get out of those? What's the litigation process? What's the argument really? Because all litigation is an argument.
Yeah, you got a problem with fix it.
Yep.
So on the landlocked property, what inadvertently happens is one property doesn't have access to a main road, a public thoroughfare, and you need to get that.
Okay.
Usually we'll approach the other party and say, hey, can I have an easement? Can I have a driveway?
And the other party being a non-associated owner.
Sometimes it's associated, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's a relative, sometimes it's just a completely different person.
Yep.
But we'll ask for an easement or a driveway. Sometimes you get lucky and you find the easement already recorded in the land records and it exists. It's just poorly indexed. So it's there. It's there. You just got to dig.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get lucky and the person in the front says, okay, I'll sell it to you for this much, but you got to improve it. And you got to put the fence and you got to put a culvert, but pay me this much. You can have it. And then in the other cases where they say, ain't doing it. No, there's no price. I don't want to do it. That's when you go back and decide, okay, I'd like to pay you the money. It's going to cost me, in this case, between $20,000 or $30,000 to sue and get the easement. So I'm willing to pay you that money.
What right do you have to get the easement though? Is there a law in Texas that requires everything to have access?
So it's not legal to subdivide in a way where a person doesn't have access. Yep. It's not illegal, but you have legal subdivision rules, and if you don't follow those, then you could inadvertently create landlocked property.
Okay.
So there's 4 common law remedies in Texas. You've got implied easement, prescribed easement. Gosh, I can't remember the other 2 now. There are 2 others, so 4 total. And the way you choose which one that you have to follow is what's the fact pattern. So one of them would be there's a property that landlocks the back property. If a person has been driving over that property for 20 years, daily, weekly, monthly, continuously,
you're an implied easement.
Then you can sue and basically make permanent the driveway you've been using.
Yep.
That's one of them. Another one is, an implied easement is when you sell a property. Like, let's say you sell this back property. Here's your road. Here's the property. You sell this property and never give an easement to that person, and you're the front tract owner.
Yep.
It's implied that there was an easement that came with it when you sell it.
Because it's legal to.
Right.
Yeah.
Although you never drew it up and granted it, it was implied that it came with one.
Yep.
So you end up having to sue to get that. So if this property that is between your subject property and the road, if that's the property that was subdivided to cause this locking event, then that's the person you sue. And as long as that fact pattern lays out like that, you'll get your easement.
Okay, so let's say...
So you need to understand what caused the landlocking event and what the fact pattern is. And if it is one of the 4 common law claims and it aligns very well, then you want to do that deal and you got a great shot at it. But if it doesn't clearly align to one of those 4, I'd be careful because that could be a real losing case.
So do you ever, before you go, you talk to the landowner, you say, hey, Bob, you bought this land, you thought you were getting 30 acres. You bought this 20 years ago. You weren't the guy that subdivided, but the guy that subdivided made a mistake. We want to buy some of this land from you. Are you paying him market price for that easement, or what are you saying for that?
There are a lot of factors that go into it, but one of them, and the part that a lot of people miss, is what's it going to cost to improve that easement? Mm-hmm. So if it's only 40 feet, let's say 20 foot wide and 40 foot long, all you got to do is scrape off the topsoil, put down a bunch of base, water it, roll it, do that a couple times, and maybe put a fence on each side. That's cheap. It doesn't cost a lot of money. But if it's 1,500 feet long and topography changes and you need some drain pipes and things like that, it could get very expensive to improve that drive.
I know.
You do. You
That's what I do. That's why I build roads.
So you've got to look at it and say, okay, I need to have some profit. I need to have some equity. Let's say I paid $100,000 for the property and it's worth $5,000 when you get it unlocked. Yeah. I might be able to give this landowner $50,000 for the easement, spend $100,000 on the improvement. Now I'm in it for $200,000 and it's worth $3,000. I still have $300,000, or it's worth $500,000. I paid $100,000 for the land and $100,000 to get the easement and the improvement. Now I'm in it for $200,000. It's worth $5,000. Okay, I have equity. But you kind of have this like math equation you have to back into. Yeah. It can be a challenge because sometimes there are unknowns there again.
So I guess what I was going to get to too was if that guy is saying, "Well, you don't have any rights here. You don't have any. I don't know of anything. I don't want to sell you this property." Do you ever come with him to the evidence and be like, "Look, here's our evidence on that"?
I do, but I don't lead with that because the moment you start leading with that, he looks at you differently. Oh, this boy knows. Oh, this boy came for this. Oh, he was ready for a fight from the get-go. I don't want to do any of that. Okay. I usually try to talk it through him nicely, politely. And if I get to the point where they've just shut down or they're being unreasonable, I usually just cool off and say, well, maybe we'll revisit this later. Maybe not today. I'll come back again, see if I can catch him on a better day, see if I can catch him more calm, see if he's had more time to think about it, and I'll give it a shot again. I usually do this 3 or 4 times. Unless he tells me, F off, get lost, I take several runs at it real nicely because the moment you cross that boundary and
you can't come back from it.
Can't come back.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, you're going to sue me.
Yeah.
I've been through a lawsuit before. Sue me. See how this works out for you.
So what I find is when I do have to have that conversation, I have it very well prepared. I have the case law printed out. I have examples of it. I have a great diagram. Sometimes I'll even have it laid out with an attorney and his information in there. It's a nice, well-delivered package. And I tell the guy, look here, Evan, man, we've been talking for 3 months now. I don't know. We've had 4 lunches. I stopped by here twice. I'm in a tough spot, dude. Doesn't look like you want to give me the easement, and it's not even about money. It just basically say no. We've been dancing, and I've been trying, but I don't think we're going to get there. This isn't what I want to do. I want you to know that. I really want to pay you for it, and just going down the road, that ain't happening. I can tell. So I have this packet. This is a common law remedy in Texas. I got to get a lawyer to do it. I've done this, I don't know, at this point 12.5 times. I know how it works. I'll win this. And I'm going to leave this packet with you. I'd encourage you to talk with your attorney about it. This is my last kind of run at this.
You call me now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
talk to your lawyer, show him this, see what he thinks. Would you give me a couple weeks and call me back? And I want to do something in a couple weeks. I'm showing you my cards, dude. Hopefully we can get somewhere. I don't want to file a lawsuit. I don't want to pick a fight. I don't want to do all this. And I'm speaking heartfelt and truthfully. And this is honest. And I really would do it I would rather do it the way where we do it together. Yeah. But I do want you to know that if you refuse to work with me, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to win. I've done it 1 or 2 times before. I got the money, and I will absolutely win. So let's try to do it together, please.
Is there a time in your career that's in real estate that shift where you're just like, just drop the lawsuit, and now you're like, I don't even want to drop the lawsuit. I'd rather negotiate it in.
I always would rather negotiate. Yeah. But sometimes when I deal with people that are abrasive, aggressive, condescending right off the bat,
you're just like,
that's when I'm like, you know what, dude? You're going to learn today.
Yeah, we're going to teach you a lesson.
I try to not do that, though, because more times than not, you can really get something done by negotiating. Yeah. You got to have a lot of patience. You got to really work through it.
Yeah. Well, that's what, I try to tell people, too, in a different aspect with creative financing is not here's a block of plan, a way to do this creative financing. Let's apply it to this situation.
Yeah.
No, creative financing is sitting down, negotiating, really trying to figure out what exactly that person wants, and it takes like hours, like tens of 20s, hundreds, sometimes hundreds of hours just to get to the point where the guy is confident enough to tell you, hey, this is what I need. This is what I really want. I know you're not trying to screw me over here.
Yeah.
Just get to the point where he's confident enough to tell you. And then trying to design a creative finance deal around that, and that's, all the good creative finances deals I've done, it hasn't been a sub 2. It's been a, this is what this guy wants. This is what I can provide. Are we able to work together? Here's this works for you, works for me, right?
That's right.
Yep. Okay. We got to create a finance deal. That's creative finance, not.
That's right.
I mean, love Pace Morby, but like a sub 2 is not creative finance. That at this point, a sub 2 is literally just a form of a loan or like a structured loan assumption, not creative finance.
Right. So the landlocked land is one of the really common causes there. Another one is co-tenant disputes. So let's just say me and you are brothers and we inherit daddy's property. The way the property code works in Texas, and it's very similar in the rest of the states of the United States, you have an obligation to pay your share of the taxes, maintain your percentage of the property when it comes to maintenance, service, upkeep, and you also have a requirement to not threaten my equity and not commit waste. I also have that same requirement under the Texas law to protect your equity, to pay my share of the bills, all those things. If either of us are not doing that, one of us has a claim against the other.
What's that called?
It's called different things, but you have equitable reimbursement claims if you don't uphold your share. So you have an obligation to basically protect my equity and manage your share of the property. So do I. If I don't do that, you have a claim against me. If you have to pay things on my behalf, you now have an equitable reimbursement claim. So let's put that into play in the real world. We inherit a ranch together. I don't pay the taxes. You do. After 4 or 5 years, that number adds up.
Yeah.
I owe you for the half of the taxes you paid on my behalf. If I don't pay you, you can actually sue me for that. And let's say I don't have a lot of things and you sue me and win. Well, you ain't getting any money out of me, but you know what I do have? I have property. You can ask the judge for an equitable lien against my share of the property. And if I don't ever pay you, you can actually foreclose on my share of the property.
Yep.
So now let's say Logan and Evan are brothers and this situation's happening, but Logan doesn't want to sue Evan. Well, there's another real estate operator that will buy your share of the property and litigate that claim to resolve. Now, if that investor is going to do all this work and take on all this risk and hassle, he needs to make a lot of money, so he's going to have to buy Evan's share for a significant discount. You know what? Let me talk about what the average deal looks like.
Yeah.
When I have deals that are literally worth $3 and $4 million, and I bought a share for $30,000, $50,000, a 50% claim. That's on the big end, and I got some little ones that are a couple $100,000. What I find I've run several reports lately, just kind of analyzing one of our business lines, the most productive business line. And the average sales price is about $200,000, and our average entry point is about $50,000. So we're spending $50,000 to buy $200,000 property, and then once it's done, we dump it on the market, and we'll net $100,000 to $150,000. That typical avatar of a deal is usually bought and resold within 120 to 150 days. That's our very average deal.
Yeah. But just so you know, like the people watching, we're not talking about ARV. We're talking as is value. We're not saying, oh, this is a $350,000 house could be.
Kills me. When people call in with a referral, they want to talk about a deal, I always ask, what's it worth? And they say, ARV is this. And I said, I didn't ask what the ARV is. What's it worth? Well, once you fix it up, I'm like, dude, stop it. I'm not a rehabber.
Yeah.
Right now, if you put it on the market, what's it worth today?
I just had a conversation the other day because we've been looking for a house. Actually found one in Spring Branch we're going to move into.
Oh, cool.
In December. Nice house. Got a great deal on it. But I was oh, maybe I'll look at a sub 2. That'd be a great option. I'm an investor. So I'm looking at these sub 2 deals, and this guy, hey, are you interested in a sub 2 in Spring Branch? And I'm like, absolutely. What are the details?
Yeah, that's your neck of the woods.
Yeah, and he sends me this like list of like stuff. Is like, oh, the payment is, $2,500. The ARV is, I don't know where he said, 350 or something like that. And I was like, what am I looking at? Like, you send me numbers for a fix and flip, but it's a sub 2. Like, and I asked him, what are the numbers? Send me the numbers. And he's like, well, it's $2,500 payment. Like this house, this address. And I'm like, no. Sub 2 is not that. Like a sub 2 is me getting to do. Yeah. I understand you're going to make money. That's fine. I will pay you money. That's fine. What are the actual numbers? What is my down payment? What am I paying you? What's
the sales price?
Yeah, what's the sales price? Where are we at? Well, it's worth, I don't care what it could be worth after it's fixed up. Why are you pushing this information?
Let's stop playing hide the wiener. Give me the goods.
Yeah. Well, I eventually found out that he's trying to sell me this $300,000 house for $320,000 that I could find on the market for $300,000.
So it's above market. That's why he was playing hide the wiener.
He was playing above market, but at the same time, like the interest rate was like 4.5%. So you're getting a better. I mean, you're basically buying a rate, but it doesn't even make sense because you're above market.
Right.
Like okay, I literally asked him. I said, do you think I'm an idiot? Like, or do you think I'm a real estate investor? Because you found me through real estate, like through my content. Like, like why would you think that I'm like this idiot that's going to buy something above market for a 3% lower rate? Like,
there's a lot of that, man. You don't have to have professional licenses or certifications to get into real estate investing. As a result, a lot of people take a run at it.
Yeah. I guess, I think there's probably a buyer out there for that, but it's not me.
Yeah.
Like there's hedge fund that's like, oh, okay, whatever. Like
maybe so.
Yeah, easy deal to get done. So I appreciate over the next 10 years. Like we're fine. We're good with that. That's what we're looking for. But
so I'll tell you what. So I pulled a report as we go through some management. I brought this up to you earlier.
Okay.
I look at one of these business lines, and you have different things to look at depending on what kind of business you're running. So if you're running a manufacturing business that spits out 200 widgets a month, you're going to look at your fixed costs, your variable costs. You're going to look at cost of raw materials. You're going to look at overhead. You're going to analyze that business a certain way. So what we've talked about so far is cost of the deal and then profit in the deal or how much you sell the deal for. But when you step back and look at this from an operation, it's a whole different perspective. You're running a business. You're not looking at a deal per deal, although that matters at the deal level. At the ownership level, management level, something else matters. So the things that matter are how much capital do you have contributed to this business? How much capital does it need to run? What's the cash conversion cycle like? How much profit is this thing creating? Do you need to use credit lines or debt? How often do you turn your inventory? So when you look at all this information, you can kind of decide how does the business work? Because like you and I were talking about, you might have an incredibly profitable business. Every deal makes a lot of profit. But if you're reinvesting and buying more deals than your cash converts, you could actually have a bank account with no money in it and all these new great deals, and everything you sold, you made a ton of profit, but you have no cash.
Yep.
So you have to be really careful.
To the average guy listening to that, he's like, how is that possible?
Duh.
Like
if you're doing one deal at a time, it's not possible. But
Yep.
as you start to get some inventory and a lot of things happening, we got to watch it.
Yep.
So I looked at this particular business line, and I looked at totals for a minute. So I said, how much money do we have in inventory? How many dollars have we spent to acquire this amount of inventory? What is that inventory worth in total, not individually, because you're looking at the business, not the deals. And I realized in this business we had 61 units in inventory. So it's 61 properties. That's not 61 deals this year. That's 61 properties we currently own.
And inventory, that's you.
We own it.
100%.
Well, no. We own some. We own anywhere from 1% to 100%.
Okay.
Some of these are actually on the market. They're listed for sale. Some of them are under contract, close quickly. Yep. Some of them we might only own 1 or 2% on the other end.
So just calculating this number real quick because it's important. That number is that share of that property, not the entire property. If you only own a quarter of it, you're not associating.
No, yes. If we only own a quarter of it, we own something greater than zero.
Yep.
We own a share of it. We don't own it. We may not own it all, but we own a share of that property. It's in our inventory. It's owned. Okay. So we own 61 units in that business line. So then I said, okay, how much money have we spent to acquire what we own of those 61 units? So we spent $1.9 million to buy the 61 units.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of those we own half, some of them we own 100%. But what we then did is calculated how much money is left to spend to acquire the balance of those properties, or some of them we own all of it, so we have no more balance remaining spend. They call that contingent liability or remaining spend.
Okay.
We did the math based on conversations we've had with people, delinquent taxes that are still owed, settlements that we know are coming, and it's about $1,040,000 remaining. So when you add those two together, our total forecasted spend to own 100% of those 61 units is $2.9 million.
Okay. A lot of money.
It's a lot of dollars, but when you break that down, it's total cost forecast per unit is only $48,000 per property. Pretty hard to get a property for $48,000 these days. Now here's the game changer. Revenue forecast per unit. So this is total forecasted spend total divided by the 61 units. Revenue, not cost. If we sold all 61 of those units at market, what do we anticipate it sells for? Each one of those would sell for $194,000. So on average, we have $48,000 of spend per unit and $195,000 in revenue per unit.
Just to bring the math simple, 50 to 200.
Bam. That's basically $150,000 in profit per unit and $50,000 in cost.
Wow.
So we're averaging right now buying property at 25 cents on the dollar.
It's good.
That's killer. Now I look at it and say, okay, let's extrapolate that out across all units. What is the value of my inventory? How much money do I have in that inventory? So the total forecasted spend is $2.9 million, which is $49,000 per unit. Total forecasted revenue is $11.8 million. So we basically have $12 million worth of inventory for what we think it's going to cost about $3 million to complete all the purchases of that inventory. $3 million versus $12 million. A lot of margin there.
And these numbers are including all your operating.
This does not include overhead. So outside, this is direct cost to the deal. Beyond that, I'll have overhead of like salaries, rent. I don't know. Salaries, rent. We have programs like Salesforce to pay a month for that, things like that.
Yeah.
But our overhead in that company, gosh, I'll have to look. I don't have it in this report. It's probably about, I don't know, $25,000, $30,000 a month.
Yeah.
So extrapolate that across the year. That's $300,000 or $400,000 in overhead for the year, maybe $500,000.
Yeah.
That doesn't move the needle.
Most of you guys are working on commission too.
Bingo.
Which employee costs can be ridiculous if you're just doing this on 40-hour a week. Like,
so here's what's
it
wild.
can help, but it can hurt you too.
Well, in this business line, there are only 4 people working in it. The owner operator, which is my partner. Then we've got an administrative person who does pretty much all the paperwork and accounts receivable, accounts payable, stuff like that. There's a salary for her, and there's a researcher. He's paid on a salary. There's one commission salesperson and then an owner operator. There's only 2 people on commission there, but it's only 4 people in this whole business line.
Really, the researcher is on salary. Really?
Yeah.
Why would the researcher not be on commission?
Well, think about it. I mean, his job is to research. So, he's like a cashier. That cashier goes and provides this service for this amount of pay each day. So the researcher isn't paid on commission because the researcher can't influence a deal to get closed. He can't get on the phone and bring that deal across the finish line. He's got to produce research. So he's researching all day.
Gotcha.
So we're getting ready to modify his pay a little bit. There's going to be an incentive structure. It's just a profit sharing arrangement. So he'll get a little bonus for each deal closed as an incentive because we're a very profitable business and we want him to be happy. So we're going to give him bonuses.
Yeah, that makes a little sense. I would just think the reason I was like, wow, that's interesting because that is the choke point of your business.
At the end of the day, if someone's terrible in research, we're going to get rid of them, get a better person. And if they're not intrinsically motivated and to produce work, then you don't have a place here. So you got to go.
Yeah.
So we've got someone in that role in that company that's really good and he's very motivated and he loves doing this.
Well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Getting back to the thing, is that the choke point you believe is your business?
No.
No.
No. The choke point in this business
I mean, to choke point to scale.
No, because we have skill in research, we have skill in salesmanship, and we know exactly how to identify these. Capital is not a constraint, and none of those other things are. The constraint is solving those issues and getting the asset to market. So this is something that me and that particular owner-operator are working through right now. We never intended for these distressed real estate businesses to get so big that we have 60 units in inventory at one time. Historically, we'd never have more than 20 or 30. This is huge. But what happens is you get a lot of deals going and you can slow down working on this one. This gets on the back burner. Our lawyer's slow on that one. This person went cold and we got to go send a private investigator out to go find them. The deals get slow. And like a rehab, you can throw more people and more labor and get it done quicker. On these, sometimes you can't. You have to file a lawsuit and you don't know how long it's going to take.
Your choke point is the lawsuit.
Right. So these are kind of unknowns in this part of this business right now. So I'm going through with that owner operator and looking at all these files or projects and saying, what's the status of all these? Okay, how can we fast track some of them? I have a couple of them where a person doesn't want to sell to us cheap. They don't want to give it away. So, and they owe us money because we've had all the taxes. Mm-hmm. So if they don't cut a deal with us, we're going to file a lawsuit to get the judge to give us an equitable lien against them. Now, that's the aggressive approach. That's going to maximize our profit. But on some of these, I know the person will sell for 80 cents on the dollar, which is not a good business case to buy their share for 80 cents on the dollar. But in this case, I say, you know what? For the greater good of the business, we already made a bunch of money on the first 75% of the equity. We're going to pay this last 25%, his 80 cents on the dollar, to get a deal done, to get the inventory to move so it doesn't take 9 more months to close this deal. We've got to make some of those decisions to get the inventory turning as quickly as it can.
Yeah. Make 75% on 3/4 of the deals to make 20% on the last share.
Right. Yeah. It's a good business decision to turn that capital and shrink our backlog a little bit. Otherwise, if you're buying 10 a month, but you're only selling 7 a month, you're adding 3 a month to your backlog. Over a year, that means you add 30 to your backlog.
Yeah.
That's not a good thing for a long time. You might be able to pull it off for a few months, but over years, that grows.
Yeah. Is there any the opposite of true on that where you're thinking, okay, we'll just let them sit. They're appreciating assets, Some of them, There's some of them that are entry point. So another thing you look at is your capital. How much capital do I have in it? Some of these deals I have $150,000 in. I don't want to just let that marinate and just see what happens or wait for the tax man to sell it for the foreclosure. Now, I have some deals that I only have 500 or 10,000 in. Those are such immaterial dollars that I will let those ride for years. Mm-hmm. I have a community property estate that I purchased 50% of a $5 million estate for $10,000. I can sit on that. $10,000 doesn't move the needle. I can just let that thing ride and we'll get there. Yep. It's real messy. It needs a lot of work, like a lot of legal work. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'm going to solve some of these others. But because there's such a small amount of capital, and I'll let it roll. But the ones that have a couple $100,000 in, I'm going to work those harder. Yep. Yeah, makes sense.
So when you look at this inventory report, total inventory is $11.8 million right now. Total cost forecast is $2.9 million. That leaves $8.8 million in net profit. Take out $500,000 for operating expenses, it's $8.3 million. Realistically, this should be turned in 6 months probably if we don't run into any major snags.
Yeah.
So those are the things that you'll look at when you look at this kind of business as it scales.
You got 61 properties in inventory. How many are you picking up every month?
I'm waiting for that report right now, but I think right now we're averaging 12, which is we're becoming more skilled in that business at acquiring them, and the employees in that business, the training is really doing well, and they're picking it up a lot. But the problem is if you're only selling 8 and you're picking up 12, you have a lot of backlog and you have a lot of capital sitting. That's one of the things we're working on right now. We need to work on moving that backlog. So I actually would be in favor of don't buy any more for 5 months, 6 months.
Yep.
Only work on our backlog and clearing that out. Because I don't really we got $12 million worth of property. We're only in it for $3 million. Like, that's a good deal, but I don't want 40 more like that. I can hit the gas and do that any day of the week. I want to work through this backlog and turn around that 8.8 million. I want to convert that into cash. Here's another thing that a lot of people don't think about. You're running a manufacturing business and one of the owners gets hit by a bus. Bummer, but the other owner can run the place and keep spitting out widgets.
Yep.
This is unique. There's different ways to handle these projects, negotiate them. Me and that owner both have radically different ways of looking at things sometimes. If I get hit by a bus next month, there are some problems that he just doesn't know how to solve. Conversely, if he gets hit by a bus, I don't have the bandwidth that he does. The dude is bright, hardworking, and he moves so much faster than me.
No, yeah, he's in finance, you're in operations. Like,
it'll take me so long to work through some of those issues.
Yep.
So we both have to be on the same page, and we want to keep that backlog shrunk, because if either one of us gets hit by a bus, the other one's going to be left with a big pain in the butt to resolve. So those are some of the reasons you really want to keep a business like this right-sized and stay on top of it. Whereas if it's a manufacturing facility, you just keep putting electricity into that plant and putting raw materials in, it spits out those widgets on the other side. This isn't that.
Yeah. So do you ever look into hiring somebody for that, like a second Logan in your business where?
My operating partners, the guys that run those entities, are as close in my mind as you'll get to me.
Gotcha.
Because we've worked elbow to elbow for some of us as long as 8 years.
Yeah.
So they know my ideology as much as anybody will. But at the end of the day, I'm somewhat of a unique guy in that regard. Not many people are willing to do this and are good at it. So that's still a challenge. I mean, I'm still a meaningful enough part of this organization that, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, the organization would be handicapped.
Yeah. But somebody would be able to step up in some kind of way to kind of relieve the pressure.
They would get through this. They would continue to do business, but it wouldn't look the same way it does now, because ultimately when they run into a problem they can't solve, I'm the guy that's got to find the legal answer. And you would think they just hire a lawyer to do that. Lawyers are good at some stuff, but they're not good at the project management, the business case. I drive things home, and those lawyers will figure out how to bill the shit out of you and maybe not get a lot of progress in your business case.
Yeah. I found that with so much that I've done in my real estate business is that, like, your title company, your attorney, like, they only can answer so much. If you really want to get a deal done, you have to answer those questions.
You're the dude. You're the special guy. This business isn't what it is without you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes your business special. That's what makes you successful.
Yeah. Well, because, I mean, it's seriously, you come to these times where you're like, all right, here's my question, answer it for me. And they're like, well, I mean, well, there's options. We can talk about options. It's like, no, just tell me the thing. What's the thing? Well, and then they never actually tell you the thing, and you got to go find it yourself.
Yeah, because they don't know the thing. That's you.
Yeah, or they haven't thought of it, and they're like, you present it, like, oh, that could work. It's like, why didn't you tell me that from the beginning? If that could work and you knew about it.
Right.
You got to go find it. That's what I always like try to tell people in business.
That's the difference in the value that they bring relative to you. That's why you make a premium above what they make. Might be like this. Mm-hmm. That's where your premium is justified and earned.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've never thought about it that way, but you're right. How many hours a week are you like invested into your business?
I work from about 7 or 8 a.m. to usually 5, sometimes 6. At this point, I'm working at 8 to 5.
So you're working 10 hours a day. You take weekends off?
Yeah. When I first met my wife, I would work 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day, 7 days a week without fail.
Yeah.
But as the business grew, we hired more people, got more stability. We're now far more productive than we ever have been, but we have 20 people here. So there's a lot of productivity that I don't have to be a part of. I can be over here writing an ebook or whatever. But the times I get involved, that's when I do something that other people typically just can't figure out.
Yeah.
So I probably work 50% of the week doing something that the business needs. The other 50% of the week, I'm going to a podcast, working on an ebook, researching an idea that I think might be good for us, things like that.
Yeah. What's the biggest? I would say that it's finance. To answer the question before I ask the question.
Yeah.
I think it's finance for you. But what is the biggest thing you've learned about, like, I guess how the right way to ask this? What's the biggest piece of knowledge, the nuggets you've earned? I would say it's finance, just from a business standpoint.
I've picked up a lot of the finance because I've had to.
Mm-hmm.
Loss management, risk management is far more important than I ever really gave it credit for in the beginning. A lot of people can come up with ways to earn money, but they don't really understand ways that you can lose money, you can make mistakes, things can fall apart along the way. And that's probably the biggest change in the last 4 or 5 years. How do you grow in a large way? And then how do you manage down your risk?
Yeah.
Those are the two big focuses that I guess I have.
Yeah. Well, and I think probably comes back from your inheritance. A little bit of that, like losing the inheritance. Like, I don't know how much it was, you have to say, but like,
yeah, it's over $1 million.
Yeah. So like you see how fast you can spend.
Yeah.
And it goes a lot faster than you think it does. Like, I mean,
gosh,
first time I ran into a big check was when I first closed on the ranch. We got paid $300,000 for closing to buy a property.
Had you ever had a check that big hit your bank account at one time?
Never. And I knew it would go fast because that was really that money was really to pay off my debt at the time. I had $80,000 built up in debt after spending my, nest egg. I built up another $80,000, so I had to pay that off. I had development costs in that, so I needed to clear a bunch of land. I didn't have a cat at that time. I didn't have anything. So I knew I was going to go through it quickly. And I knew there was probably about enough, but it would probably go away in the next year. But when you see that number dropping and you go from literally you get in your bank account, my situation, got in my bank account, the next day, $80,000 left. Because, I just had bad debts. Not bad debts or good debts. They got me there, right? But
just a lot of it.
Just a lot of it. So paying back loans, personal loans, paying back people that believed in me, paying credit cards off. Boom, $80,000. Okay. Now I got, $220 to figure out this ranch thing and, start renting equipment. I need to rent out a skid steer to start clearing. Well, shit, dude, this takes forever by yourself. What if I hire somebody and another skid steer to do more? Did that, boom. 3 months later, there's $50,000, and it's like, we got a lot of stuff done, but we don't have any sales coming in yet. Still a lot of stuff. And it's just like the amount of time that can go fast, you really start identifying, like you said, risk management.
In your mind at that point, had you become a business owner yet? Or are you still just
in my mind, I'm still
trying
not,
to figure it out?
I'm still not a business owner. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I've had successes, but like you said, I know how to earn money. I'm still trying to figure out how to replicate this thing, and that's what I see as a business. Business to me is having employees through a replicatable process to turn the wheel. Like I'm still very much self-employed.
Gotcha.
The highest earner. Self-employment category.
Well, that's a good place to be, and a lot of people don't realize. They say, I'm a business owner. Well, up until 5 years ago, I thought I was a business owner, but realized I wasn't. I was just a high-paid person. Today, I'm a lot of a business owner. There's parts that I choose to participate in, but there's a big shift when you have people to help do the work, and you've got a process, and you've got just a thing that happens without your hand in it every day. That's when it does become more of a business.
Yeah. I would say the closest thing to business I have right now is this content. Right.
Really?
It's not producing income right now, but it's a business structure. We got CRMs. We have the team, Edwin's editing, here shooting today. We have.
So that's what you need. The next thing is how do you get the revenue?
Yep.
Well, that's a good point. So where do you anticipate revenue to come from this? Is it from the business that it brings by your notoriety?
That's what I'm after. I'm after not to be famous. I'm after to have people reach out to me to, hey, I got this land deal. Either I want to sell it to you, I want to partner with you. It's my uncle, and I want to, seller finance with you. Right?
Gotcha.
Bring you in the door that way. But also you have to kind of build. It's weird because content isn't just so straightforward to be saying, hey, I want to buy a ranch. Sell me a ranch. 2 views. Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to build it out in a way. So I'm still figuring that out, where the income's coming from. I just know inherently having viewers on anything is what's the delayed, I don't know if this is the right word, but delayed leverage,
Oh, yeah.
So the more people you can contact, the more people are interested in you. I haven't had to ask in anything. I just know I'm waiting on that ask. What is that ask going to be? I'm not sure yet.
Interesting. Well, it'll be fun to see how it develops. When I started producing content, I was really like saying what it is I was doing, just telling people because I wanted to get the word out. And I thought if people start to know who I am, they might call me with some deals. So it was Logan and Lisette were buying vacant lots in crummy houses on the east side. And we were touring them with our phones and taking pictures and videos. And it was within about 6 months, people started to call. Got this deal down here on Crockett Street.
Yeah.
It really started to then happen. But it took half a year for people to decide what they wanted to do with us, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think the other aspect, too, I didn't say this, but the other aspect to me, this whole content thing, I'm talking to people like you, talking to people like, Jamil. I'm talking to people, Pace Morby. Every time I get to sit down and talk to people that are doing these huge things, I'm learning.
Constantly. Oh, my gosh.
Like, hold on, let me see that piece of paper that you were talking about. Let me see how I can structure my business.
They'll take your call.
Yep.
Now that you have a little relationship with them, you can get these guys on the phone.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, and like I've always just, to get that, I've always just provided. I've never asked for anything. Like provide. You know, how can I provide you with value? Is this something like, can I give you this? No, that's really not interesting. Okay, whatever. Still provided it. Let me provide something else. And that's how you kind of start building those relationships. A lot of people, when they meet somebody, and you'll get to this point, I'm sure of it. You might still already be there. Is people just recognize you at the airport, or people, have the opportunity to come into your office and they're just a little starstruck. I'm not sure if you're there yet, but
I'm in nobody, but a relative, nobody. But around San Antonio, people pick me and my wife out a lot.
Yeah, but how's your interactions? Is it really awkward?
My wife is real awkward with it, but when people come up, they're like, "Hey, Logan, I saw you on the internet," or "You always talk about the messy deals," or something like that. The first time or two, I didn't know what to say, but I thought, hold on a minute. This is what I want. This was the whole purpose in getting recognized, to be able to build a brand and a recognition. And I thought, what should I do when that happens? I'm taken back. Okay. After that, let me talk to these people. Hey, Logan, I see your stuff. Oh, great. Are you in real estate? No, I'm not, but my cousin is, and we share all the time. That's so awesome. If you come across one of these, let us know. We'd be happy to go speak at your event. We're happy to do a training at your cousin's brokerage for people. This is great. You got the message. I'm glad you did.
Yep.
So I started talking to the people about what I wanted to talk about when they finally found us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's interesting because I think you'll get to a point, though, where at least with the people that, like Pace and stuff like that, where you come to a large following, start getting people that just tense up. They won't be like, "Hey, I saw you. You're the messy guy." You become this guy that they're like, "Hey, man, I really like your hair." Like, and you're like, "What? Like, what's going on?" And people, I think they just run into that so much.
Oh.
You got to give them something else. So, like, when I first meet these people in person, I almost act like I'm not interested into them. Like I don't care who you are. You're just another guy in the room. I recognize you're another guy, right?
Yeah.
Because you see yourself as another guy. I'm going to also see yourself as another guy.
Right.
So a funny story, when I think I've told this before on podcasts, but I'll tell it again, is I'm in first time meeting Ryan Pineda in his office. After he gets done talking, there's this line that's forming to meet him, to shake hands, take pictures, yada, yada, right? So I get in the line intentionally, but and there's also a food line that's wrapping around the front and going to get food. So I'm sitting in this line, get up, keep going up. Finally gets to me and he goes, "Hey, Evan, how you doing?" I look at him and I'm like, "What's happening right now?" And he's like, "Well, you want to talk, ask questions?" I'm like, "Is this not the food line?" He's like, "What?"
I wanted my burger, not you, dude.
Yeah. And he was just so awestruck by that. He was like, "This guy's different." Like, I don't know about this guy, but I believe in his mind.
Yeah.
And other times when I do this, is like, they just like, this guy's different. I don't know what it is about him. But now I'm more interested in him than he is in me, So I've built a lot of relationships like that, So it's an interesting way. I think if you can approach people like that, it's just to show them that you're just another guy.
Yeah, just slightly different. That's interesting.
But
Yeah, I think when people see you every day or see you often, they start to form opinions about you, have some feeling of closeness because there's a lot about you that they start to know. It creates a semi-celebrity in a way.
yep.
And Brad Pitt's no different than you or I. He might be a little bit better looking and maybe have a little bit more money,
Yeah.
but he's a man. He puts his jeans on, left foot first, right foot second,
Yep.
ties his shoes, and goes into work.
Yep.
He just has a unique skill, and you're in front of him a lot, so you start to think differently about him. I think
Yeah.
that's all.
I think too, you get a lot of questions like, help me with this, help me with that, help me
Yeah.
with this. And I know I've done it with you too, but like I'm always trying to be cautious of like asking for too much. Like at least let me pay you
Yeah.
for this
Yeah.
time, or let me pay you for this, because a lot of people just ask unintentionally. You know, they don't even know they're asking, but everybody's getting the same question.
You know, that's a fair thing. Like, people are busy, and just because you have a page on the internet where you talk about stuff doesn't mean they deserve part of your time.
Yep.
You know, Cody Sperber is one of the guys that's just a long timer in the education business, and I had some questions. And I'd been to his podcast before, but I've never done anything for this guy. He knows who I am, but why would he want to waste 2 hours of time? So I sent him a text message, said, hey, I need to buy an hour of your time. I'll Venmo you $1,000. I've got some questions about coaching stuff. If you want to do it, let me know. And at the end of the day, $1,000 doesn't move the needle in my world. It's not. He's rich. He doesn't move the needle in his world. But the fact that I'm willing to give him $1,000 for an hour or two makes him say, all right, this dude's not a shithead. He's not taking advantage of me. I'll give him some time.
Yep.
So I find doing things like that really does help. And they have respect for you, not because you're buying them, but
Well, you're never.
care.
The problem is like the level. I mean, you might be close to his level on the amount of money you're making, but like the and I don't know who the guy is. So, anyways, the level disparity between, you know, if you need help and you're asking so and so for help, that level disparity, you're never going to have enough money to pay for his time.
Right.
He knows it. But the fact of the matter, if he's willing to help and has that type of mentality, I just like helping people. Mm-hmm. You're willing to give a lot of what you have for my time.
Right.
You
That's
know?
absolutely right. Yeah.
And so I think that plays into it too. Like, I mean, don't be like, hey, can I borrow your time for $10 because that's a lot for me? Like, it's not going to hurt you enough. You know, like.
Plus, a guy like him, you, me, or whatever, we got a lot going on there. A lot of people on the internet watching you. And if we were to stop and take our time to give that much time to every single person out there, we would be giving away part of ourselves.
Yep.
I've got to have my own privacy. I got to have my own family. I got to have my own time and stuff. And the balance is you project all this on the internet, so you want to build something, but you've got to have a little bit of your own. So that kind of leads into another segment that we've been working on, is directing the internet traffic into the channel it's supposed to be in, whether it's for a JV deal, it's for advisory work. We try not to do paid advisory because we'd rather just do the deals. But we have some coaching stuff. We've got online courses. There's just all these different things that we offer. And I don't know what it is that people want. And it's very inefficient to like work your DMs, even with a what do you call it? A VA. It's still not efficient. So we've started to add some automation into our direct messaging on the social platforms. So when someone reaches out, I don't know if this is personal. I don't know if they want information about coaching, an event, advisory, whatever it is. So we've got some automation that will chime in and start to get them the right direction so that we can be more efficient for them and obviously for us.
How profitable is the JVs with what you're doing? Like how many?
Dude, we have millions of dollars in JVs right now.
So would it be advantageous for you to take the front end, the 4 weeks you're saying, or the 5 weeks that you're doing your coaching program, just throw it on YouTube? So
one of the problems you're going to run into is I can put that out there, but you're going to be putting power in hands of people who don't have the right guidance. And I suspect people are going to go out there and get in trouble. There's a lot of good information I can put out there on YouTube, and I'm happy to. But when you start getting into this granularity, they're also not getting the support that we then offer after that.
yeah,
And, man, they're going to get out there and start doing stuff that's going to cause problems for other people. They're going to be encumbering titles. They're going to get themselves into an expensive jam up.
well, they may go to the courthouse and buy a property and not understand that there's 2 years of more taxes you got to pay.
Yeah, so I'm a little apprehensive to do it that way.
Yeah,
I don't want to get them. I don't want to help create someone who's so dangerous they mess themselves up.
Okay. Huh. I wonder.
The other thing too is what I've learned over this amount of time. I'm happy to help some amount, but if I'm going to give my intellectual property that I spent 10 years to build and build a multi-million-dollar profitable business, there's some parts of it that I would like to charge for that I don't know that I want to just give for free.
Yeah.
There's a lot I'll give.
I see that. I understand that, but somebody will be teaching it. So like there's somebody else out there right now doing exactly the same thing you're doing that just doesn't have a coaching program. That will eventually
be teaching it for free.
Yeah, be teaching it for free.
Well, that's okay. They can do that, but I won't.
It makes sense. At the same time, it's something you should question yourself.
Yeah.
I think. But it's just my 2 cents.
Interesting.
I'm just some guy doing ranches. So don't take it as 2 cents.
Right. Well, there are a lot of ways to skin that cat. At some point I might develop into a place where I say, I have nothing left I'm going to charge for except for our participation, and I'll put everything out there. I don't know.
Yeah. I just think it'd be so helpful for you as your business-wise. If JVs make a lot of money, put the information out there, call me when you're ready. Call me when you get the deal. Let me help you at that point.
Right now, as the JV deals come in, people come in once they've got a contract signed. So we've got something to work with on. That's really good. And then the next thing is when they're in our program, they get trained up so well that they do a great job of finding what it is we need. So, over the last couple of years, that coaching program has started to grow. We've started to organize it better and just really dial in on it. And we've been able to put together a model that's got reasonable overhead, well pay to the people in my office that help provide. And then it's also, in my opinion, for what you get, a very reasonable fee to the people out there. So it's working and we're evolving as it goes. At some point in 10 years, we might find how it changes. I just don't know yet.
Yeah. Tell us how people get a hold of you.
Oh.
Facebook, TikTok, YouTube.
Yeah, dump my name into Google. Logan Fullmer, Fullmer. Dump it into Google, and that's going to put you at my website. There's some fun information about there. And then also Instagram. I put a lot of my stuff on Instagram, and I've got some really good links and resources out there. Those are the 2 best places right now for me.
Is there anything you're giving away for free?
I've got an ebook. I'm 30 pages in. I'm probably going to clip it at 50 pages.
Okay.
And I bet it's ready in 3 weeks.
There you go. This podcast probably won't be ready in 3 weeks, so
okay,
we maybe call you back for the link.
We put a lot out on my social platform between me and some other folks in the office. We just talk about the messy deals, what they look like, how you do them, what kind of money you make, how to find them. If you follow, we deliver a lot of that frequently, so it kind of helps you get in the groove here.
Yeah. They've heard enough on this podcast to say, hey, I want to jump in. I want to start doing this coaching program. How do they get a hold of you?
Just shoot us a DM. Yeah, on Instagram. I've got a lot of good resources that'll come at you quickly, and you can pick what's the right way to go.
Cool. Well, thanks for Logan. Thanks for coming on.
No doubt.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy it, Evan.
Yeah, thank you.